Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This is going to be my next Avatar fan commentary track, and this one will be for Book 2 Earth, Episode 6, The Blind Bandit. Continue to send in your suggestions for episodes from Avatar and Korra that I should do as future commentary track videos, but yeah. To sync up your copy of the episode with this video, what you need to do is, of course, have your DVD, Blu-ray, or whatever version of the episode you have ready to go. And I'm going to stop speaking in a little bit as part of this introduction. There'll be about a 10-second pause with no audio, and then when I start speaking again, that's when I will have pressed play, that's when you should press play, and we should be synced up. So, I'm going to bring the intro to an end just now, and after the pause, when you hear me speak again, that's when you hit play and we should be synced up within a few seconds of each other. So I'm going to stop speaking now. Okay, so here we are with 206, The Blind Bandit. This is obviously the introduction episode for Toph, and I do rate this one quite highly. I definitely have it in my highest ranked tier. It's not one of my absolute favorite episodes, but it's right there and thereabouts, you know, like on the verge of being in the top 10. I can't remember exactly where I have it placed, but I think it's somewhere in the region of 9, 10, 11 or 12 overall favorite episodes. It is a very strong episode, but I think what's interesting to look at in this episode is that, you know, the introduction of Toph is one of Toph's best character episodes, and it is kind of interesting to consider that it takes until the comics and the Rift for them to really come back and really touch on, I think, some of the interesting ideas that this episode brings up, mainly Toph and her parents. The series ends with no real resolution between her and her parents, so that is left for the comics to do. And I think they could have done an arc here that worked really nicely within the show with Toph and her parents towards the end, but, you know, it's interesting to consider. I don't like, in a way, that the previously on Avatar mentions the scene from the swamp here going into this episode. It feels a little bit too, do you remember this thing? Yeah, this is going to be resolved in this episode. I don't like when the recap type thing immediately re-informs you about something that only happened 2 episodes ago. I would have understood it if this had happened over 10 episodes ago or something like that, but it was just 2 episodes ago. Interesting, Aang there at the bottom had no eyes for most of the scene there. Kind of weirdly animated. He wasn't too far in the background either, so I don't know why they did it that way. But yeah, Aang has to learn earthbending, so here we go. Master Yu. And this is obviously meant to be more kind of representative of if earthbending was taught kind of karate, where unless you really commit to it for a long time, you don't get to the good stuff. And the first lessons are very much just basics. And obviously Master Yu's meant to be an okay teacher, but not nowhere near what Aang actually needs. The Avatar needs kind of more of a kind of personal one-on-one teacher rather than just someone who's giving a whole group lesson here. It is weird to see that this character goes on a bit of an arc. He becomes a bounty hunter. But, you know, that's just good writing that they're able to do that. And yeah, here we go. Earth Rumble. These kind of mean boys being mean to Aang. And I like Katara's role here. Sticking up for Aang and just, you know, showing who's dominant between her and those guys. And then, yeah, Sokka in the bag is a fun little plot point as well. Momo's bag now. And yeah, Earth Rumble 6. It's basically meant to be, you know, the bending equivalent of WrestleMania, you know, number. But yeah, here we go. The earthbending arena. And yeah, of course, here's the thing. At one of these things, you sit in the back because it's so dangerous up close. Not a lot of safety concerns here. Here's Xinfu. And Sokka is so into it, typical, really into it wrestling fan. And Katara is like meant to be, the type of person who doesn't understand what wrestling is, type thing. Aang's just interested in seeing different benders. And yeah, the boulder is obviously meant to be, a kind of avatar version of The Rock. He's actually voiced by Mick Foley, who is obviously Mankind, and like he was tag partners with The Rock and Sock connection. And yeah, you basically get a lot of wrestling sort of references here with the idea of the boulder is meant to be your kind of perfect babyface type character. He's, strong, charismatic. He'll be on the edge of losing in a lot of these matches, but then he'll come back and win, and very strong. The fans really like him. And he goes up against the big guy who's bigger than him. Like, you can't knock him off his feet, but he somehow manages to do it. There's a lot of sort of like wrestling sort of psychology in a way to a lot of the fights going on here. And that's why it works. Like the names, the fact that most of the characters go by like an actual name rather than their own name. And yeah, it doesn't seem that this is exactly the place where he'd find the earthbending teacher he needs. And the Fire Nation man here is obviously meant to be your typical heel, and specifically that kind of old school style heel where they go down the route of like pitting countries against each other. Like probably the most recent example of like Rusev, when he was first like introduced onto the roster, was like just like this Russian guy who hated America, and that's exactly why you have an earthbender guy who is sympathetic towards the Fire Nation at this time. So he's the biggest heel in the kind of company here. And yeah, he doesn't even get any offense in because this is the perfect chance for the babyface to just have a hugely dominant win to get him over even more with the fans. Now, the matches I believe in this aren't... It's hard to judge, like, are these meant to be rigged matches? Like, is it meant to be scripted like wrestling? It's really cool that the Badger Moles are used to clear off the ring. And yeah, you see the sort of more gimmicky guys. That's obviously meant to be your sort of luchador-like character. The boulder is going on a victory spree here, taking everyone out. And I think the fact that Toph is in charge here, like she's the champion, they are real matches that they have here. So it's not fully scripted, but they maybe overemphasize like the flow of the fights. And so yeah, obviously, this is the big thing. Someone who is blind has to wait and listen. And they do an amazing job at showing just, how Toph's, that she can do like typical earthbending, but like she has a whole other layer to it as well. And obviously, like, Toph is kind of meant to be the heel in this match as well. They're meant to have like the boulder is like the big, face here and all of this, and the fact that Toph, insults him is meant to be like, oh, I hope he actually beats her. The fact that she's called like the Bandit and stuff like that. But yeah, what an amazing way to showcase it. That when he steps down, he sends the most minor of shockwaves through the earth. She senses that immediately and counters his movement. And the idea is that like every time Toph fights, every move she does, she basically views it in this way. They just emphasize it here the first couple of times in her introduction episode, and then never, for the most part, really do it again. But then they obviously do it for like Anguirus' Ozai right at the end. And yeah, hugely dominant victory. Again, she waited and listened, one strike and it was over. And yeah, that's exactly the person Aang needs. And yeah, the open challenge here. She's obviously so good, like who could possibly come out of the crowd and actually beat her? And yeah, Aang's going in. Just to talk to her, but like he obviously ends up accidentally winning. And showing you like Toph looks like the most powerful earthbender we've ever seen, but like has a straightaway weakness. Which won't really be emphasized in the series because she's friends with Aang for the most part. And there's no other airbenders, but that airbenders have an advantage over her. Of just like she tries to attack him, but like when he's floating in the air, she can't sense exactly where he is. And he's so light on his feet, she just kind of barely has a sense for where he is. It's a great use of styles here. That's how airbenders are, and just he blocks the earth bending with air, sends a blast and knocks her straight off. Because you wonder like how much of an ability to sense airbending attacks does she really have? But yeah, it's obviously sort of an embarrassing defeat here for Toph. At that moment, the fight against the crowd, she's meant to really win that one. But yeah, now suddenly I remember the audience is the organization champion. They even got the belt. And yeah, the bag matches the belt. And you see some of the sort of earthbending kind of drills that they're doing there. And like, what are they doing there? Like sticking their hands into sand to, I suppose, practice for eventually doing stuff like poking your hands through earth. And yeah, that's her like wrestling persona backstory. But no. Shoot. What's her background? Shoot. What's her real name? And here's the mention of the vision. Flying boar. And yeah, Beifong family. Yeah. We're obviously in Gaoling here. And that's an interesting point. The Beifong family is super well known. Richest people in town. But normal people don't know that the Beifongs actually have a daughter. Water Tribe is a great fun moment. And then the boulder, obviously the way he's voice acted by Mick Foley here, because The Rock pretty much never refers to himself except by The Rock. He always calls himself The Rock, even when he's speaking about himself. He doesn't do it every time. Like he does still say stuff like I every so often, but most of the time he always calls himself The Rock. But yeah, just great voice acting choice there. Yeah, flying boar. Straight over the wall. And yeah, Toph immediately senses them, of course. And here she is, but wearing fancy clothes once more. And here she is in the Beifong like estate, but they didn't have a daughter. Explain that. If she is the daughter of this rich family, what's she doing as part of Earth Rumble? And Toph immediately, straight away, like isn't particularly interested. You know, she doesn't have really any reaction to the whole idea of the war, defeating the Fire Lord. And it is an interesting one in that, for the most part, like you never particularly get like Toph's kind of view on the just state of things for the most part. She ends up like just like joining the group to teach Aang and just kind of participates from here on out. But obviously, you know, she just wants to do her thing, Earth Rumble, not get involved in anything different. Because she's obviously hiding that from her parents, is the plot point. So here's Lao and Poppy Beifong. And yeah, here we go. She's actually being trained by Master Yu, and she's at the beginner's level according to her parents and him. She's hiding her skill from everyone else. So like the lie is kind of revealed here. So when Aang walks in, it's an honoured guest, I suppose, for the Beifong family, but Toph is like, don't ruin this for me. Because as you see, the way her kind of parents view her and treat her. And that's what's so good here. Like immediately you can tell that this is a kind of deep character with what they're doing here. There's a great dynamic, even though this is our first time meeting her. And even the comics, like Poppy hasn't returned yet. Like she's obviously fixed things up with Lao for the most part. But we're still waiting for Poppy to come back into things. And we know she does because of stuff in Korra that's said about like, oh, I sent you to stay with your grandparents type stuff. teaching Toph since she was little. Of course, we learn later on that she has actually learned outside of Master Yu from the Badger Moles, and that's where she actually gets her sort of mastery level from. Highlighting once more the idea of like, because of Toph's backstory, that explains to us Toph was an earthbender before she met the Badger Moles. The Badger Moles just taught her the technique and not the raw, latent ability to manipulate Earth. But I love the back and forth between Aang and Toph here. You definitely get across the idea of like they're both, the younger members of the group here, and they both have like a kid argument here. And they're like, "What's up with you two?" And obviously this is the big scene here where you eventually like get, proper conversation between Toph and the rest of the group. She didn't really have much. It would be interesting if she just reacted to like, "What's the giant thing behind you, Appa?" And yeah, here's the explanation of her abilities. Her seismic sense, basically. Her earthbending is her sight, given that she can't see properly. And yeah, just emphasizing she can see everything. She can see more even though she's blind. And she hides it from her parents because they don't understand. They think she's helpless, and also because they're a noble family, she's expected to be a person that she fundamentally isn't. The person that she is the person who can like be put on that sort of pro wrestler persona and be the head of that company, whereas they expect her to be the kind of perfect sort of princess type character for the noble Beifong family. And yeah, here we have the miner guy, the metal boxes here, the hippo, the whole just wrestling organization like comes after them, thinking that they, basically stole money from the organization. It's like a fun sort of sports conspiracy thing. And it's great then that obviously the leader, like Xinfu, ends up sort of joining with Master Yu to go after Toph. And then, of course, Toph was initially captured here in a metal cage which she couldn't get out of, and then she later escapes from the second time she's captured by actually metal bending. So there's a lot set up here. You see that her parents do care about her, of course, but they fundamentally don't get her. That transition there, "you must be so scared," versus she's actually just acting tough. But yeah. Here's the money. They're going to give Toph back, but how's Aang going to get back? And yeah, so they realize it's the Avatar. The first hint of like, oh, Xinfu knows about like the kind of bounty hunting system. Here comes in all the talent. You have your sort of Ultimate Warrior like guy there in the back as well. And here we go, the call to Toph. We need you to be able to take these out. And this is how Lau views his daughter. Helpless. She doesn't like being called helpless. And here she's actually finally going to reveal herself. Aang kind of spoke to her normally, was an actual friend to her, so she's going to help him. The whole team did. They saw more than just the blindness, so she's going to help them. And yeah, I gotta do this myself. Big statement there. And that's the thing with Toph, like she gets so many cool like one-liners like that. So many times they show her in the fights as just being able to just do everything on her own. So it makes the scenes when she does need the others very impactful. Stuff like the desert and so on are important episodes to highlight that she's not just this kind of perfect, kind of complete character already. Which is why like I do wish the series had done more with the parents and not just left it all for the comics to do. That's probably the only thing with this episode, is that clearly sets up Toph and her parents as being a dynamic that probably should be returned to. And while they reference it in other episodes, they don't properly explore it. Like, you would have liked to have seen maybe Lau and Poppy at the kind of finale when everyone's celebrating, but Toph is just kind of on her own. Well, the Pipsqueak and the Duke are actually with her, actually, in the end. But yeah. It's just amazing display of earthbending. Just, yeah, waiting and attacking. Demonstrating the neutral Jing that is needed, of course. Her style obviously being very different than the people attacking her, in that she's doing a lot with her feet, whereas like the Canyon Guide from the Great Divide emphasized that like he needs his arms to bend, whereas Toph does actually a lot with her feet, because her style is slightly different than the typical earthbending style. Yeah, and the Hippo and the Boulder end up being like the main kind of two other guys in the group, in that I obviously come back for the invasion. And this is so cool. Just change the ground, and yeah, that takes everyone out. And then yeah, takes everyone out except Xin Fu is also an earthbender. And he's actually the best of them all. In that, like, he's very good, but he's also got that sort of trick up his sleeve as well, as we see. And, like, Lau sees the whole thing, but we'll see what his reaction is at the end. So yeah, this is cool. Just a big flurry of attacks, very quick. Kind of a slightly different level than everyone else we've seen in a way. He does block one of her attacks, and then as he's dodging, hand into the ground like the kids were doing earlier on in those kind of big kind of buckets things on the ground, dodges his sort of ultimate move, and then completely KOs him. And Master Yu, a Master Earthbender, notes that she's the best Earthbender he's ever seen. And here she is, finally revealing everything to her parents. The person you think I am isn't me. This is who I am. I'm tough. And yeah, they were keeping her a secret. That's an important point in all of this. Yeah, 12 years old, she's never had a friend. And that's why meeting the team has been so important to her. And why she's willing to go with them and sort of leave her family behind. People who actually see her for who she is rather than just who they think she should be. And yeah, they just view it as like, oh yeah, we don't care. Just like, no, we've had too much freedom. We'll just look after you even more. And it's just, this is the position that he's in getting in the way of everything. And yeah, the one big bit of emotion here in this episode. But yeah, as they go to leave, she's going to, of course, come back. She's going to lie to them, of course, but you get why she does what she does. This is a journey she needed to go on to, you know, really be herself. And here we go, her normal kind of, her outfit here. And they all know it's a lie. But they're still willing to take her because they saw the way her parents were. And yeah, I like this joke at the end of just like, yeah. Oh yeah, I'm the champion. And then yeah, he throws it through the air, doesn't hand it to her, highlighting the... It's going to take a little bit to get used to that. And yeah, he hires I suppose in his mind, the best two Earthbenders he saw. He's paying them for it. We're going to go after Toph. I think it's impressive that like the Rift comic is able to make you sort of care about Lau again with what they do in that. It's a very well done comic that links pretty nicely into this episode. And while the arc is still ongoing, like I said, with Poppy, them still needing to deal with her, I hope they actually managed to characterize her a little bit as well. Because obviously Lao was still the focus of this one, but you did see Poppy a little bit. But definitely you get the impression she kind of had much the same view as Lao in a way, but didn't speak as much, so there could be a slightly different dynamic with Toph. Maybe she's the one who's maybe more protective of Toph because of her blindness, and Lao is the one who's more like about the position that they are in as sort of nobles in the Earth Kingdom. That might be the approach that they take, but we have to wait and see if they'll come back to it. But the comics definitely link into this one quite nicely, because it primarily is only like the main episodes, like when she's arguing with Katara, that like they really come back to it. So the chase and the runaway, they end up referencing it as well. But you do wish there would be something towards the end. But yeah, this is a fantastic episode. Introduction of a new main character, Aang's earthbending teacher, so the plot is tackled in this episode as well. The constant sort of wrestling sort of style that we get throughout this is really good as well, especially if you know wrestling. That you see exactly what they're going for in this one. And then just lots of cool different earthbenders, getting a lot of action, quick fights, different styles, especially emphasizing Toph's and the very sort of more connected approach of her earthbending style. Plus there's good character stuff, which is the introduction of Toph, and this is the dynamic we're going for. She's incredibly strong, but she's sort of new to being part of a group. She hasn't interacted with a lot of other people because she's sort of been hidden, so we'll see how she interacts as part of the group as we go on, which is basically what they emphasize in the chase when we get there. But so in my mind, very, very strong episode. There's no obviously Zuko side plot here, because I think it was important to devote the entire episode to introducing such an important character. So that was definitely a good decision to do this here, especially given that the next episode is Zuko alone, Zuko on his own, and you don't get to see the team in that episode. But there's the commentary for the Blind Bandit. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this episode, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.